Well, anything from you, but I got it from Sarah. I got it from Sarah.
Recording in progress.
Well, I'm Sarah. Previous life, I'm not sure, but. Okay. See if I can do that. Hey, KPPCSD. Yeah, I forgot. Huh? Yes.
Should have, I mean, it's.
Very tough. No, it's wrong. Get to. This system is just so bad. Here, other do this. Yeah, that she. Yeah. Or. This is. Yeah. I thought. Okay. You can go back to Zoom and just there. Oh. Oh, there. Yes. Does it recognize my face? Remember my name? Okay.
Okay, well, now I'm trying to.
Good evening. This is a special meeting of the Kensington Police Service District. Is the 11th, Thursday, a little after 5:30. And I'd like to call the roll.
Director Aquino Fight.
Here.
Director Duggan.
Here.
Director Goff.
Here.
Director Hassai. Here.
Here. Now, again, the purpose of this meeting is to discuss and give direction regarding strategic priorities and cost estimates based on the post-workshop memorandum. So if anyone, there's no one in the audience here, so if there's anyone online who would like to provide comments with regard to the agenda item.
I show none online.
I'm sorry,
Showing
I don't see anyone else.
But no hands.
No one's got their hand up. There are people online, but okay, just to preface this, this will be a presentation in which we were working, and I'd asked Vice President Aquino Fight put together a PowerPoint for this purpose. And I'm going to ask General Manager Aranda and Vice President Aquino Fight to presentation. So I think, and do you want to put the PowerPoint up as well? Oh, you're gonna, okay. You have to wait. Yep. For me to see.
Thanks. Okay. As mentioned, in May, we met with of Ridgeline. The board worked at developed, but from constraints and also from the stand of talked about to those were addressed and attempt two things. Number one, give your items. And number two, Dimitri is in need of some pricing estimates. Subject matter, I'm going to interject right now that as much as I've been on gas information, not really prepared for the majority of items to give that information. I'm wondering, in general, as we go through each item, if the board is okay, me gathering the information and passing it along to Dimitri. If the board is just passing it along to Dimitri, I'll take that responsibility. If the board's, we see a bit of a delay in him finishing full analysis, we have to wait for another meeting. And you're more than well ask me as we address each particular, because some of these items I have information on. So we, as the go on to the next one, we tried to break down the list things, the short term, long term, and difficult time doing that because I consider all of these things really of utmost importance to try to address right away. And any input that the board would like to give on that? Dimitri had, in addition, we spent time going through our issues and discussion, and I rehash that. It's in the minutes document that'll be with the district forever, and you're always welcome to review. The one item that is not so much a project oriented, but is a funding oriented item is, and we'll probably have a bit of time on that. And when we get to that list, if you go to the next one after that, I know I'm going kind of fast here, but I really want to make sure we spend the time on what we need to do. As I mentioned, Dimitri made a out of our list. I've digested it. I've sent out some information which directors on one with me, not with each other, on your feelings about prioritizing how important they are. Is the cost going to be too much for us to handle? Those types of things. And I've had an ongoing Dimitri, and like I mentioned earlier, he's interested in trying to wrap analysis up, and he feels for it. President Spath and I had a conversation about that. Probably other than the building itself, the potential of a new building, most of the items we're talking about aren't going to have a huge impact in order to what he's looking for. We'll still try to provide him with some of that information. As I said earlier, and the PowerPoint reiterates it, feel free to, in case I forget to end with some of these listed items, I am so far on them, feel free to ask me, and I'll answer what I've come across so far. I think aware that the general manager and we had which revolved around potential staffing if we were to become one organization. They have a bearing on some of these items we discussed. Hopefully, again, I'll interject that as we're discussing a specific item. With that, I think, Alex, is that your take it from there?
I believe so.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, General Manager Aranda. So I took the liberty of with David and David's President Spath's input and General Manager Aranda's input of trying to take a first stab of refining our short-term, midterm, and long-term price from the last meeting. But I'd love everyone's input. And do this because as we all know, we do have to, categorize and trim at the same time, given our staff capacity. What I propose short-term priorities for this district. Number one, improving our tech capacity. Shouldn't be that, but we do heard complaints and concerns, ability for folks to participate things virtually or even in the room. There's some sound issues, Zoom issues. These are all things that I think we rapidly. And number two, I think it'd be important as we think about the changing demographics of our community to really and effective communication strategies to engage the community members. So how can we regularly update our website? Can we maintain and update social media accounts, email listservs, perhaps a texting system, but especially as we consider emergency preparedness. Important because not everyone can join us at these monthly meetings, so we need to have regular forms of communication. Number three.
Can I interrupt
Yes.
on 1 and 2 for the benefit?
Sure.
There's no doubt ability. I just haven't been able to do it yet, to reach out to some other districts on what they've done to improve their board meeting capacity. That will be on my board agrees on our tools and publish. I had a conversation with Streamline. Some of you may be familiar with them. Streamline is the website provide, but I think what there might be some misinformation or maybe not even no information about is when the powers and they contacted Streamline, there was very explicit an explanation of Streamline. I want you to set something up so that we're meeting the government code, but we're going to handle the website ourselves. And so in talking to Streamline, we have here to improve our website, and I will not, they are gonna, or the website, we're still gonna have to dedicate some sort of staff to that, but we could go a step up in what their capability and still, which I'm very much in favor of, be able to utilize the compliance with all the law in regard to websites and postings and such. That is not a capital expense. That would be a bit of an increase in our operational expense, which, based on some other things that are going on already in our reducing this, I'm perfectly comfortable with if the board feels suing. And this is that I can give you some of the websites they gave me that they've already done. Metro Sac Fire is one of them. So that's something to consider. They all in their scaled up version of the website, and I'm going to say something that I don't totally understand. They have the ability, I think is what they said, social media, which is what, Facebook, all the different ones and it somehow works for our benefit also in the information. Does that make sense to all of you?
What I could say is that there are tools and I mean, Streamline was the first time that we actually did site, and they've been doing themselves increase their capability. They've been around now for a while. What to write a post that, like, there are products, something like the Hootsuite, that you write one post and it knows how to put them up on multiple sites. I think all of that is great. I would say that one of our biggest issues, though, is somebody, updating it, keeping it current, making changes. So I'm all for taking advantage of whatever Streamline has developed over the years, but we still need to do that. And I did promise during our session to reach out, and I got a contact for the Elsery Information Academy. Possible to get someone as, really, if they had a lot of guidance, you could get a junior, senior to post what you want them to post. Possibility, but school let out. So I think it's something to look forward to the fall, or a very part-time, responsibility for like a staff person within the, or.
Cass?
All right. It's okay. Thank you. Yeah, on that note, I was just, in terms of the tech capacity for meetings and for the communication tools, that and actually the possibly community survey support and newsletters handled by a capable high school intern, paid internship position for much less, but there would have to be the right person. But I know so much of this is just second nature and easier necessarily be a huge, maybe with working in collaboration with Streamline and oversight by the GM. Obviously, David and I'll have to provide the written content and be approved, but it just seems like that could be a significant cost savings. You pay them the youth minimum wage was like $16.50 or something an hour.
Process for this discussion purposes, I still need to do some research on the who to get it done. Well, I'm right now as I'm speaking in the company, the platform, I guess, that we could potentially use. But I don't want to, if we hired or we increased what Streamline does for us and retrofitting this site, and then it sits there in disrepair because we don't have the manpower to stay on top of it. So that's, I think the who is the important aspect of this, and I'm happy to do some searching on the different recommendations I've heard.
So has Linnell been doing it at the moment? Who updates the website?
the portions of the website. Well, of course, the meeting agendas, sometimes ask me to update and put press releases or notices, but just to thoroughly go through and don't.
You don't have time. Would you have time if we paid you 5 more hours a month for a while? And
It's inappropriate for a board member to posing. It's a general manager type staffing issue. So I don't think we should be making these kinds of specific suggestions.
And that's part of what I said, the who is I would be speaking to existing staff and then also addressing some of the other options that you've given either tonight or thrown at me over the discussion.
well, I think it's, certainly, I think we have existing staff might have capabilities to, review stuff. Maybe the design of the website is beyond anybody, I mean, I just, when you add a whole nother staff member, it's a lot of supervision and a lot of money. The other thing I want to say is in trying to reorganize our 2 districts, we might, if that in a year, that is of course going to require a huge amount of website change, social media change, and the other district does have some as far as doing, social media outreach, as far as I can tell. So let's think about that because it's all up and then we have to change it all around.
Well, it's a good point, and I alluded to the discussion forth on this part of us reorganizing. My opinion, but I'm looking toward the board, is that we should not wait to see if we reorganize to improve our social media, web out. We need to tell a story and we need to do it right away. That's the bottom line, in my opinion.
So I'm gonna agree with Director Duggan on redesign or on a new role. I rather that the district spend some money on increasing the hours of an existing staff person or training an existing staff. I think the website is yes, improve a little bit, but it's actually very simple and I don't think it needs to be a fancy website. It just needs regular updating. And I do think we need regular social media. I also disagree with a high school student from my past experience managing college and high school interns. It's just very time consuming and we don't have that. We train an existing, my preference would be to train an member or to consider long-term, with a new potential structure, an IT consultant or something, but yeah.
That would Sarah. And Sylvia.
Yeah, I would just say that the intern, not only is a great way to generate, interest in public service with the young people, but, it is done all the time. And we have 3 high schools in close proximity, Berkeley. I know my kids are pinged all the time for volunteer opportunities and things. They're doing it. They have product to show for it. They love it. If they could get paid, all the better. And I agree that wage is unnecessary and fully about consolidation, but to do a bare bones Instagram, Facebook just to get information, basic out and, a newsletter, which is a general manager anyway, that's not a heavy lift. And that is something that a high school student, I mean, they are so capable. It's a little scary. I just think that I would very much like to see that program go forward. And I think it would excite the community a little bit and get some of those younger parents also involved and interested for that.
as regards Facebook and Instagram, we haven't got, as far as I know, right? And moving into that, I like that. Just, and perhaps a high school intern, but don't let them do the right, pick our for writing, and just that person's gonna have to be closely supervised. But yeah, I like the idea of, we were talking about having a summer intern, KPPCSD interns for that kind of thing and other tasks about your program you had in down south. Did sound attractive.
So to try to put this into the bubble, it appears that everyone, my mission is to get more facts on the suggestions I've heard, and there's some differences of opinion, but based on the suggestions, I have no trouble examining the options and then coming back with hopefully a more of a better firm plan on this.
And when you say improving, what I heard was that I think I hear consensus on having you investigate the how are we going to be and communicating with the public and who, but I don't think I don't think the board is saying go and research a
No, I hear you there. What I think I do need, just for my own benefit, but I think it would be good to hear, is Streamline offers right now with what we're paying and what Streamline is offering monthly with not a whole redesign capabilities of our website.
That I know Streamline, and I think I understand the difference between like what David's saying. It's not a redesign, it's just some enhancements. It's
Sarah?
I also think that we shouldn't wait on improving our tech capacity at meeting. We're having enough glitches and issues, so that's a separate thing. So that immediate priority, we've had enough frustrations with.
All right, last.
Last comment. I wonder, David, if this is that under waste management on the website, there was some real outdated stuff to their attention. And what I'm thinking would, if one of, if someone on the staff perhaps would just read through the website. That is the task I would say to do on the website right now. Just somebody clean a bit.
Okay, so I think David has his marching orders here.
Right, thank you.
We'll go forward with that. So, sit on.
Great. I'm going to speed us up a little bit. We have bigger topics to get to. So number 3, in terms of our short-term priorities, to length about this one, the ongoing research on of the long-term home for our police department and district admin offices on the south side of the library. There's David, I don't know if you want to give any update right now on that, or
Yeah, it's important for the board to know this. We're in the final stages of entering into an agreement with the city of El Cerrito for a 4th and 5th doing. And in our discussion, changed on to 180 days, and that push for that, and I'll explain why. I don't want to be left without a home. So we need 6 months and I use the city manager. Let's say the city council cases and someone doesn't, they don't like Kensington being, we cannot find a place in 90 days. So I'm letting all of you know that it looks like we have a place, and regardless of end up going with, it's going to take time. So I think we're at a comfort level of over the, at least the next few, where we're at and what we're paying for. Now, with that, I'm gonna add number 3. Demet is asking to try to pencil something in with 3 options, his suggestion was. I know from our last discussion with Dimitri, the comments from the board members, which I agree with, is that we have not gotten any written estimates on any of our options except for staying where we're at. That's an easy one. So up to the board on you might have to give Dimitri an answer to his inquiry. And I'm not saying pick a price. Give me how maybe we get an estimate.
Well, as far as 3 options, staying where we are, obviously building a new building at the site we've picked, and could be moving the portables or
Yeah.
doing some self. Could it be priced multiple ways? You could do for sticks and bricks or whatever, and then all options. So then I mean, I think you have to consult professionals. They're just really not going to be based on, I'm not saying they're not realistic, but they're just, I guess is what I would say.
Well, I mean, Sarah and I did talk to professionals, and that's how we got a range. And so suggest perhaps using that range. There's a low end and a high end. I don't know if Dimitri can do a range now. Okay. But those numbers weren't just picked out of thin air. That, if I'm wrong, Director Goff?
Yeah, they were back of the napkin. Rough. No, we can't rely on those millions of dollars and very expensive, but I mean, no architect or builder is going to, we can't rely on that. You have to, yeah, it's rough.
And as we've seen with the fire building, then let's also make a plan. We're getting, trenches dug. That's cool. Then we could get an estimate made for how much it would cost to create a platform or whatever, and put the modulars
Right.
behind the library. So
that's the question. I hear what Sarah's saying, but phone calls and we pay, I would consider to be a small price for a profession to give us, it would all, it's a, doing it. I'm happy to start reaching out to people.
Sarah?
So of the 3 options, maybe can we refine them a little bit? Because I have strong opinions on option number 2, which has been alluded to, and I'd like us to remove it from consideration altogether. I strongly moving the
Can I interrupt you though?
yeah.
We can't make actual board decisions on those type. So if you want to see option 2 moved, we need to put that on the agenda next month.
Can I get some comments on the record about option 2 in this meeting? Isn't that kind of the point too?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Option 2 is,
Why don't I just say this? There is really no option 2 in the sense that the board, when we've made formal decisions, has not put that forward. So maybe that is, but Dimitri's asking for 3 options. So would 3 options be better as we stay where we are, we build from sticks up, or we look at a prefab option?
Okay, so
That,
according to the document on the agenda provided, right, there were 3 options mentioned. Option one, this is on page 2 of the discussion strategic priorities,
She's referring to my staff report.
is staff report. So if you look on page 2, one is build a new building south of the, and move-in date is projected at 2029, cost of Building option 2, provide the necessary infrastructure and move the modular to the area south of the library. Move-in date projected 2020. And then option 3 is continue to utilize the existing agreement with Mobile Modular and the city of El Cerrito and stay put for the next 5 years. Capital costs for this option. So what I would like to get comments on the about option 2 specifically about creating the infrastructure to move the modulars to the south lot, which I even be a consideration. Moving the 4 separate modular units that now comprise Barefoot Police Station in El Cerrito would be an irresponsible waste of public funds. Structure is in effect a rectangle with a 100 square foot footprint. On the other hand, I have been told by more than one architect and builder that the most cost-efficient design for slope side, vertical, and an building, whether the first level is for parking or other administrative or operational uses. A, the footprint of our new building be only half that of a modular. So why would we excavate more of the slope than is necessary, knowing the building would likely require more excavation? Why would we incur significant additional site work expense and more of the south slope for the permanent structure? I want to preserve as much of the slope green space as possible, not rip it up for a bad temporary option by Kensingtonians' money down the drain. It must also be stated caused by these modular structures and the related site work would most definitely impact property values and generate a great deal of neighborhood. And I know I would be the first to join them in their resistance. We can't ignore the costs of deconstructing the modulars for transportation, moving them, south slope site, and then installing new utility hookups, all of which by simply keeping the police where they are until a decision is made about their permanent home and they can move directly into that new district building. Let's take a step back and look at how things are working now. The police response 4 minutes, by any standard. The police are visible throughout Kensington on a daily basis. I personally have seen no fewer than at Grizzly Peak last several days on the Arlington Inclusive Circle, Berkeley Park near the schools, etc. The police have made genuine efforts to engage with the public, not only on the widely attended national night and the recent events at Benchmark and others. The chief has also made tremendous progress in hiring, and now our KBD is nearly at full capacity for the first stages. Perspective as both a community member and director, our Kensington Police Services have continued to function at a high level despite the move. Then why would we propose all the negative impacts that would certainly follow when police services have remained at a high level? Why instead, let's continue cost for our best site location in Kensington, which at this point seems to be the South Slope. Let's stay the course and not be distracted by panicked temporary options that do not serve the people of Kensington. Thank you.
Cass. Yes, Cass.
Well, I believe we must get estimates for all options. There's a reason why Dimitri he's a professional in this field who is looking at our situation with realistic eyes and just there is no for this. You know, if we don't know where that money is coming from, EOA are in the camp of moving the mod behind the library. Those are some very well-respected people in Kensington. And, you know, think that some of us are a little more out of touch with the majority here. The majority opinion does not, you know, stand behind raising taxes. The majority opinion still goes with what our slate, which you're on, Sarah, proposed, which was to put the police back in SB. Unfortunately, that is still the majority of. I just think we need to listen to our people. That's what we were saying in our slate. When we're people go out, talk to the people, and they're at middle of the road options, not just the big, and got a plan. Yes, it would be great. But can we afford it? Our taxes for that? I just don't think it's realistic. Also, we are paying $5,600 a month to El Cerrito for renting that space. So that is a
Not a month.
cost. How much per month?
It's about 1,200, 1,300
I think
Okay, so maybe the 50 for the modular?
or
Oh, it's for, oh,
El Cerrito.
Yeah.
And we also pay for the modular.
so.
yes.
So
Yeah.
Budget,
Anyway, I think I'm just here to say, let's do real numbers for middle ground as well as the highest possible cost, because we don't have that money and money does not grow on trees.
all right, I think we ought to close this off, but I think we'll.
yes,
this,
you
very
are.
much so. We haven't chosen any site. The only thing that Dimitri was asking for was options somewhere down the road that he could cost it out. And anything about accepting those options, we've made note on that. So for the purpose of just doing the cost, Dimitri, and I would also point out either second option of a module or a new building, that is probably going to require an acceptance by the public of fund situation. So it's going to have to go to the public to begin with. So from my perspective, just having Dimitri put those into a cost estimate is any bearing on what the final decision is whatsoever. So anyways, I guess, David, you can have a conversation with Dimitri, see where he wants to go with this, because right now it sounds like the board is not in concert with one another. So.
Um,
Go ahead.
yeah, so I think that was very well said, President Spath. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think there's any harm in getting the number for these three options. We're not making about the final location or the final way we're going to build this building or location. I fully support getting numbers for option 2. Yeah, putting modulars on the hill, but I don't see any harm in getting the number.
what it will do is if you forget speak of what each option is, it gives a range of a dollar amount that we would need to either fund or borrow, and it shows what it does to the fiscal health of the district. So I think that's another big picture way of looking at it is, you know, if you came up with this dollar for a full building and you came up with this temporary building and you came up with another one for where we're at, that gives Dimitri what he needs to show us when we're looking at the fiscal analysis, our fiscal sustainability.
Okay, one last comment.
Things. One, I don't think we can assume how the broader public thinks about this issue right now because we haven't surveyed them yet. 2, this district has a history of putting money towards explore ideas. It's still Dimitri's time. I feel it's the bad idea doesn't work. We are lean organization. I feel we should get distracted by option number 2, but I guess I'm in the minority, so.
Yeah, so again, returning back to short-term priorities. Number 4, I heard clearly in our last strategy brainstorming session that we do, and today's meeting underscores the importance of this. We really do need a survey. I agree with Director Goff that we really don't have a full sense of the majority of residents think. So I think it's important that we all, think about how we're going to do it. Having some conversations on the side with folks here and there is not the majority. So then I do want to, then number 5, we have,
Well, let me ask on number 4, you and I had a conversation, Alex, and I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you were saying we should have accompanied.
yes, so that's my personal opinion, is that we hire a professional consultant to design a study like this. I don't think it needs to be an extensive expense. We speak with folks who've done these kinds of studies at other studies. And other residents who've worked for city science, people do this for there's got to be a way to figure out how much it costs. I don't think this was a project to or a college
It's
student.
not even me, to be quite. And so unless well, I guess there's some other comments before I move forward. Okay.
Right. I just feel these things are important. If we're saying they're priorities, we should make sure everybody understands what it is exactly. So for the community survey, is it to get a temperature check on interest in spending money on the building specifically, or feedback or providing services generally, or both?
I think that's up to the
All-
board to decide exactly what type of. Right. And then I agree with Alex, it probably should be done by a professional. It has to be statistic good, because you don't want to have like 10% of the community responding. That would have no validity statistically wise. So first things I think is want to have. What are the issues we want to reach out to the feedback on? And then we're contracted to do it.
So I heard in the last meeting that we were going to a broader set of issues, not just the building.
Right.
I think we should put this on the agenda or do a future brainstorming session just on the survey, because it's a huge topic. I agree.
Back on some stuff. We don't know exactly. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Making it is good, and I would like to actually include in it the well questions we were talking about. Are there people with unmet needs? I mean, if we're doing a survey, it doesn't need 8 or 10 questions, but that could be one of them.
Okay, so let's do it for another meeting and move on.
Great. So short-term priority number 5, I don't think
Don't, because it's on our agenda.
right. Okay. Onward, short-term priority number ordinance up. You,
Yeah,
describe
I'll
this?
update the board on this. The chief and I have had more discussions on, basically what a lot of people would recognize as a municipal code that cities use. I took his information that he's done some research. I sent that to Ann for a little more direction. And the real issue, is number one, we don't want that I'm going to use the example of sleeping in the park. We have an ordinance on that, but if we can't, I don't want to go that direction. So what I'm trying to gather is the information that's needed, so we have the teeth to go along with the laws. And that is not something that I do on. What am I hearing? Okay. That is something when I gather all the information, it will be presented to the board. It's not something I would do on my own. Important because our live I guess is the word to say.
Our meeting, we go through, assuming that process will implement and which to not. We're not obviously going to implement every ordinance to us.
Right. So in have an explanation of what we're trying to accomplish, which to me is an ordinance code. There's already ordinances that exist for this district. So when we talk about an ordinance, those are ordinance that are specific to rules and potential misdemeanors of district.
Yes, one less.
So I would definitely like a list of all the ordinances that are as part of that, so we, we see what we've got. And I love it that the chief got fired up about this. And actually, I want to force not sleeping in the park. We have policemen, they can say, don't sleep here.
You don't have your laws, you can't tell someone they're breaking a law.
So you meant we don't have it now, but we want to have it.
So where I came from instead was titles book, an ordinance code. It was codified. So if I wanted to know all the laws for parks, we would flip to that section and a number of different ordinances that the fishing permits that were needed, the park permits that were needed. You can't take firewood off of those types of things. And that's need to establish here.
In other words, we need to adopt as a board, these ordinances.
Yeah, oh
Because
yeah,
they
there's
are
a process
enforceable.
on that.
Okay. So-
But to answer your question and for anyone else, you can go to our website because there's not that many ordinances over the history of this district. You can go to our website, go to governance, scroll down, ordinances and
All right. For another discussion. Another meeting. Okay.
Okay, and then the last short-term priority that I heard from our last session together was continuing to research potential funding for all of these priorities, because clearly our current budget wouldn't cover all of them. So, I, General Manager Aranda, if you have the support to do that kind of research, or if you need support, it is important.
I'll tell you, all of you, that initially I was going off of memory based on what we had spent at Stallion to a police tax and to fund a mailbox and such. Obviously, I'm aging myself because I asked Dimitri to look at what I stated, and he said, no. Look at about $100,000 when you just gonna go out of funding and ask the voters for it. And that involves engineering studies for whatever they have it now. And of course, not promoting of it, but just the informational side of it as well. So my thought process is this needs to be done sooner than later. But I think the community survey, I would hope, would drive where. So my recommendation would be to not do anything with 7. And trust me, I'm not saying on this, but have the information we need to move forward with that yet.
Alex.
Yes, identify who could help us to do this kind of research. Several months ago, you mentioned
BS.
a consulting a firm, and then the gentleman who works with there was talk about him being able to perhaps do research on funding, but I don't know if that's the case.
Well, two paths going down the same direction. I asked the chief to set up a meeting with Jason and with MJ to start the path funding on and federal and state side of things, just axing conversation with Jason and MJ. Then the other is a professional company like NBS that actually understands all the in community for and why. And the legalities of what to do to justify it.
And you're talking about sources of funding here. In the parallel, we also understand what the costs are going to be. If we're going to go to the building or for renovating the park, we have to have a clear understanding of how much we're going to be asking for.
Right.
Or we're going to be asking the residents to tax themselves to pay for that. So it's a parallel track that you're on here.
And I'm really comfortable that Dimitri's tenure will assist us in determining the need for the district, money wise, and what departments fall under.
Well, I'll give you an example. Well, park, understand what we're going to do with the annex. And maybe even upgrades to the recreation building, seismically retrofitted. Those costs as well, and at least get some. So there's a number of aspects going forward. It's not going to happen over, take some research and also planning as well. One last, good.
Also looped into this is the community facilities and
That's-
mechanisms like that we need to understand and with the survey, just to emphasize, that would tap into how the community sentiment around services and what they appreciate and like to see more of tracking. But also everyone needs to realize that we do have current need and our current short of a lot of things currently.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to ask the board, is there a consensus that it wouldn't hurt fall to have someone like NBS just come and explain the options and what's involved in them, so you have standing the complicity, how complicated the whole process is?
I think that would be useful. And put in the community district. Secondly, if the bond measure in November passes that reduces the percentage for building facilities from 67% to 55%, that will also have an impact on what we're looking at going forward as well. So a lot of issues in play.
Okay, so now let's turn to what I draft attempt of articulating what our midterm priorities for the district.
Sorry, guys. Just one. With the short-term priorities, are we done with those? Is that what they are, or
Yeah.
other short-term priorities? Like, for example, work fixes, like fixing that dangerous area Girl Scouts spoke to us about, certain capital, not just improvements like annex.
I would say that's going to come out of operational costs, so you're welcome to just.
So it's not something that needs to be identified now. Oh,
Sure. So for the first midterm priority that I think I heard in our last session was developing a park. This would impact a lot of the expenses that our budget needs. But once we do the survey, I would assume we work on develop my sense of the order of things.
Yeah, so give you a little bit of what I've been doing and you add to it or subtract to it. To the city of and they gave me the name of a couple of companies that do it. They haven't gotten back to me yet. To them feel the other feeling I got. What, pardon? Park maintenance. And what I've noticed websites of the three I think I looked at that I've reached out to, that encompasses landscaping as well as not operations, but capital needs. So I think, I hope we're all in agreement that the annex building is incorporated discussion of a master plan. We're not separating it. Is that pretty much what we all came to that conclusion on?
I don't know. It's pretty up in the air, all the possible uses of better to discuss that. That was not on the PowerPoint. I was like, wow, where'd the annex go?
But what, in giving it thought, after I heard what some directors were saying at our other meeting was, if you have a professional working on a master plan, it points better toward what the annex building for than your idea and my idea. And I would hope that's a better vision, I guess.
Be honest, this was suggested creating a master plan. I was not so psyched about spending on it.
Right.
And the idea of spending a bunch of money on it is like money coming from. We are at a shortfall in this bill. We've got to figure out where the police. And I was hoping we could create a quick, plan of our own that is realistic. I think if you expensive, consultants who are going to devote their time to this, it's really important to make it very super clear to them. It is small and it ain't going up unless you somehow get some funding.
So I think the thing to remember is that a master plan is a long-term, isn't a whole probably that has to change with how the park is set up now. Established use areas, but the annex building itself is one of the biggest pieces of the park that has not been thought through. So that is an important of a master plan. It is not necessarily that we are going to implement all the quickly. I don't think putting that together is extremely expensive. It's several maybe things and, a couple. I don't think it's that expensive, but I think it's important enough to know where you're going, plan to get there. So if of the park master plan are, what's the annex going to be used for? Do we want to, the amphitheater need kind of repair? Does it need, are we going to have a dog park or not? That maybe those are just the three elements, but I think you have to decide where you're going before you can get there. So it is, thing.
Asking right now is up to companies to see what they would say.
Well,
Doesn't-
Let me just finish before you go. This is based on a meeting we've already had, so I don't want to relitigate up with. So it's on the list. Unless you disagree at midterm priority, all there is some information about what this could cost. So, idea or not, it's already here. We've already discussed this in our strategic planning session. So I don't think we should be relitigating. We're just hearing where we're going to get more information
And Cass,
and
you did,
decide.
right, I'm not trying to ignore you. I recognized you're in the last meeting as well as, but I'm moving forward with what the majority did say to move forward with.
okay,
So.
but I think it is a big mistake to lump the annex in. Speaking of the survey, park uses and use of the annex should really be big time on the survey. And town halls are things that actually, people would probably love to see us doing ourselves. I think too many consultants, you know, to ramp them up to speed is gonna take hours and hours and hours of paid. I just personally, I'm not so psyched about the idea of analysts and accountants. I think, you know, we could do a lot. Let's not lump the annex in with the park plan. And yeah, I just want to say it's great. I don't think anybody'd have any complaints, and spending a whole bunch of money on that is like, what?
So Director Duggan, I think the annex should be part of the master plan. I don't, it's part of the park. I view it as part of the personal opinion. Clearly, we disagree. And I don't think anyone here on the board is saying, so I urge you to be careful when you make statements that were about, you know, that we're going to go out and hire a ton of consultants. That's, and I think everyone on the board is very aware of our fiscal constraints, and no one here is advocating that we go and spend a ton of money on consultants. That's false. I think we're all trying to we want to hear the public. The park could be a great way to engage public. So that's my opinion.
In closing this off, why don't you some of these companies decisions. All right.
Okay, midterm priority number 2. I think we kind of discussed this already, short-term slide, but evaluating the building location for the permanent home of district offices. I don't know if anyone else wants, I believe this one was more referring to the geotech survey. Is that correct? Right on the side of the library?
Did you thought on that? Because my mind is blank.
Well, again, I mean, first step, and we're seeing with
Yeah.
the trenching. So first step is really on whether then we've talked about 3 potential locations. As I understood this, all these 2 locations in the phase, and make a decision on one of them going forward in the last term, which you'll see momentarily.
Correct. So by it's according to this list, we would have decided the feasibility of other options. That's all this is saying, that we will have decided on the feasibility of those.
Yes. All right. One more.
Yeah, so feasibility, which is what you're saying, Alex. But is it in this midterm priority to be more than feasibility, but a decision made?
I think that's what we'd have enough information
To make a decision?
to actually the board makes a decision.
Right.
Certainly should be decision.
So
That's my wording, so it's.
Sorry to be nitpicky.
Okay, the next is emergency preparedness.
President Spath, I'll let you touch on this.
The chief has talked about identifying someone who someone who might be able to. Secondly, that's something we would look on down the and seeing what the contractual arrangement could be and what the cost would be. But secondly, in the interim, from my perspective, I think we should be the fire district as a partner in a joint emergency preparedness group committee, which I'm a liaison right now. And I think both boards should be party to that because we both have to response for emergency preparedness and response. So effort to reach out to the fire district and could expand that committee to be a joint committee of with representation, formal representation of a board member on each and a co-chairing of that committee going forward. And then subsequent to that, looking at a broader emergency preparedness plan, and to Cass's earlier point, that may coalesce if there is reorganization.
Not that I really have a lot of time, but I volunteer to be on the emergency preparedness committee if that is permitted.
Can I interject a few things? Number one, call with the chief and with an individual, a professional that does that type of work on Monday. So what's involved, the cost of a plan. And then number two, based on board president is speaking about, does this board feel it appropriate that, president of the fire district asking if the emergency preparedness committee that they've established now become a joint committee with some member on it? Or would it be in your thoughts of it being an informal where I pick up the phone? I mean, the committees are really established by board, so I think I'll leave it at that.
I just wanted to flag that in addition to the work on emergency preparedness for the community, our administrative entity should be sure to be prepared. And I know when I first joined the board, we made that a priority. Office had water, and we had a plan, communications plan. So I just want to make sure those things are updated and, kept up to date things.
Before the chief goes ahead and tries to hire, a consultant, I would say we would talk
That's
to,
not gonna happen.
no, I know we have to approve it, but we need this to be as joint of an effort as possible, as you're saying, with the fire board. So, and would maybe be really good to consult. It's like, what should the KPPCS be doing right now to support your efforts and to coordinate our efforts better? Because I just don't want us to do something that isn't going to be very useful.
We wouldn't do separate.
Chief has been collaborating with the fire. So I think that there are separate needs and responsibilities, and the chief is looking at the things to get assistance on. But I trust that the chief in his daily course is doing that, and then that is, not micromanage this process. And in particular, if I remember correctly, because the chief has already discussed this with us, he may be looking for assistance on how to set up the evacuation zones and how to do the evacuation planning, which is our responsibility.
Again. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Apologize. Go ahead.
I just had a question of whether the special needs registry we discussed in our meeting included in the emergency preparedness plan or be a factor or somehow component.
It would.
Okay.
It would be a component, the big picture.
Great.
Definitely.
Great. As well as evacuation, all the stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know how the board feels about trying to have a joint committee approach. Personally, I think that would be a good idea, and maybe it's best for me to reach out to fire board president to see if there would be an interest in entertaining that idea as the first step. There are a lot of other elements. Emergency preparedness plan, we need an emergency operations aspect to it, how would coalesce when there's an earthquake, for example, where down. And there are a lot of things that are down the road with this plan.
There's a disconnect, blaming anyone or anything. But the best way to reconnect is by both agencies working together and coming up with something that benefits this community. And whether that also includes a professional outside consultant in a true emergency plan and doing tabletop exercises or actual simulations, that work, I feel very, from the day I came here and drove Kensington, we got to get that done.
So, Alana, go ahead.
Chief Sailors is amazing. He has a PhD and I'm sure, you know, he's got some plans that I really, isn't it horrible that we are not aware? You know, that's why we need to get these boards merged. I want to say thank you, Sarah, mentioning the disabled registry that fell off the list. Yeah, getting
Comment to into David. Our chief sailors are working together in these issues. They've already gone through tabletop exercises on earthquake and the concept of dealing with the wildfire and how that will work. So it's not that there hasn't been strong relationship. So. Yes, go ahead.
So they would love to see emergency evacuation or drills within months. I think if we talk about our, you know, focus on emergency preparedness, what I would love to see us
I
actually do.
agree, we need drills. I'm not making any promises of
Okay.
Just want to be sake, if President Spath wrote a letter requesting for the board to be joined and ideally co-chair anyway, to have it fully collaborative might be, if they're open, but it'd be great. I think a formal ask is the way to go.
Agreed.
Moving on.
Okay, so next, I think we've also and part of this study is around number
Well,
4.
I think there indication here that it's the same thing with the building, that hopefully by 2020, boards have made a decision on, are we moving forward or not? That's really, I think, what it's trying to say here.
Exactly.
And just for this board's update, it is hoped that there will be agenda item with Dimitri doing a 10-year projection in August. And then in September, the joint, the production of what the two organizations, one financial analysis shows, and there still needs to be worked out the logistics of how that is and discussed. But just to give you all a time frame.
Okay. I think that's correct. The last priority that I heard in our last session was actually, so hopefully by 2027, we will have secured some additional form of grants and possibly this vote.
Yeah.
So I think ideally those two things would have happened.
So to summarize, what Alex is put here is a lot of our midterm discussions here are actual conclusions that we're coming to that will then push us forward.
How we could apply or qualify for Measure X grants.
Well said, General Manager Aranda. Yeah, these are conclusions to the phase 1, the short term, many of these. Okay, let's move on to the long-term priorities. I took a stab or projecting that this would be, 2027 to 2030 and beyond. But I think long what I heard was that the department and the district offices, it- the district has agreed and voted on building a new building, then construction's already underway. Maybe meeting capacities are in place for sure by this point. Improved and regular community engagement tools are in place, so tech things that we were discussing, social media things that we're discussing, those should all be it should all be a well-oiled machine by 2030 or 2030. And new funding sources are still being secured. I don't know if but this is what when I put everything into short, these were the things that were left. So it's, this is all extra at this point, could depend on what happens.
I would in the overall scheme of the memo that Dimitri drafted from our workshop, we've touched on everything.
So I would actually like to volunteer to help with designing the survey beyond or something, David, if that would be helpful, because I have a lot of ideas.
Well, we made a decision. We were bringing that back to the board.
A brainstorm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And, but after that, if you need someone to work closer with the survey people, the one thing that is not on this list that we haven't mentioned yet is paths ownership, and that concluded, and
On-
paths, the paths, Kensington paths are not on this list. And I would like them to be on the midterm, the midpoint list, maybe.
The thought process, rate them as part of the park discussion. Not as I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I've read Lisa, and there's nothing more that can be pursued right now until the county decisions on where they want to go.
Well, an important priority.
No, I'm not trying it,
It's
but
in
I
the
don't know what else to
park.
do right now, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
is
yeah.
what I'm trying to-
Well, I would like that to be on the list, be concluded, but the last slide. And I don't think it really does fit with the parks because they're all over the place. They're not around the park.
I take responsibility for dropping that one. I'm sorry. I do think it's separate from the park.
Yeah, I'd like it to echo that term priority separate from the park. It's also, but certainly we would have information to make a decision on.
Okay,
That there are implications, there are financial implications to assuming ownership or whatever. So while it is separate from the park, it should be intensively into the future financial
That's-
needs of the district.
that's why
And I'd like to propose that we take us if 7 o'clock meeting, if we're concluded, obviously let President.
Just one more slide, if I may. And this is just to kind of recap immediate so that our general manager has approved most of these priorities with some edits. And David, you caught those suggested edits. Okay.
I'm comfortable. We'll be getting a lot of information from me over the next month.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I hear that you're going to be continuing the necessary research on the costs, funding sources, and the necessary support for funding sources or executing all this research. So if you do need support on any of this research, we want you to have that. And then last, you'll be continuing to oversee the feasibility of the south side of the the police and district offices.
Yes.
Cass, you had a question?
You know, great work. Great work, to Dimitri too. It's codified. We need it to be, there's something as our new strategic plan for 20. Is that something gonna happen?
Let's take the minutes from the special meeting and see what we can do to incorporate it into a planning, yeah.
Okay, we need to take comments from the public before we close this off. There's no one in the audience. Is there anyone on Zoom commenting? I don't, no hands as far as I. Let's close off the special meeting. 15 minutes. Does that work for everybody? Starting at 10 after 7. So the special meeting is closed. meeting of the Kensington Police Protection and Community Service District. It's a little after 7, almost 7:10. I'd like to call the meeting to order and have a roll call.
Vice President Aquino Fight,
Here.
Director Duggan. Here. Director Goff,
Here.
Director Hassan. Here. Bath.
Here. To ask anyone on Zoom, are they having a problem with the audio? On hearing it, that it's breaking up. Having that problem, could you maybe just raise your hand? Okay.
What is it?
Julie, what is happening? Is you could let her.
Um, I see that I'm unmuted, but there was no audio for the question you asked me. I heard you say my name and then I didn't hear anything.
There's been some indication that maybe the audio over Zoom is not coming through clearly. About every third it gets truncated. Is anyone experiencing that?
Well, am I still live? I just got a message I was going to be muted.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I'm experiencing the
yeah.
sound cutting out after the third word. So
So it's happening both ways. Great. Good, Del?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
You're breaking up completely, so it's hard to understand what you're saying, so I just want
So
to
it's breaking up at about every third or fourth word?
yeah, okay.
Here's my question, and those of you on Zoom right now, speaking. Are you hearing every word I'm saying? People's mouth goes away and then it's gonna break up for you. So my question is, did I just break up at all?
Yes,
Problem.
yes, you did. You break up completely and then you come back spotty. So
I have one suggestion, which just would be if we just sign out of the Zoom, everybody, and then restart it again. Would that be problematic? No, 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 it wouldn't. I'm not saying it's just the same link, but we just re-sign it of leave and then everybody like restart, like you just close out, but then
Let's try that.
is
if
that,
Nothing else.
that's what I would suggest.
Let's try.
let
it.
me, can I
Okay.
say one thing? I had
Yeah,
a hard
that's good.
time. I had a hard time getting into this meeting that I had to update my software. At first, it wouldn't recognize me at all. So if I don't come back, goodbye.
Everybody leave the meeting and then come back on. Okay, let's try again. We'll we'll start the roll again.
Vice President,
Here.
Director Duggan,
Here.
Director Goff, Director Haas.
Yeah. Okay, I have a few comments to make. First of all,
I see that some of the people that were on aren't on now.
yeah, well. Let's see.
We've let everyone in that is waiting to get in.
Well, they can get in as
Okay.
attendees, so I think they're all back. It would appear to be. Okay. Comments from the president. To begin with, you probably remember a couple of meetings ago that good guest Kensington asked if we wanted to participate in seeking a grant for the arts in California. And at the time, Member Hasai and Member Keno Fight both indicated that they would be interested in working on Good Guest California, particularly Laura Collins. So I've asked both of them. So I'm asking them both to work with Good Guest and liaison with them and with the board in looking at the possibility of a grant, and if it's possible, then make application with the board approval. Secondly, I want to thank the general manager for his work on the cliff area.
On the what?
The area which was brought to our attention by Emilia Giovenco, I believe is the way we pronounce her name, who did a very nice job of presenting the case. And I walked over there today that we have put up a barrier across the whole area. And so it hopefully will deter children from getting into that area. They should really make an effort to get in there. So let's hope they don't do it. I'd also like to point out that, as we all know, this is in, and it's become very warm, and the park is drying out very quickly. We've had more fires in California this year to date than before. That you need to prepare for evacuation out of Kensington. Everyone should have received the flyer in the mail a couple of weeks ago, asking residents to at least identify a couple ways in Kensington from their location, as well as planning for a place to locate once you leave, and even consider pre-evacuation as an option, particularly on red flag days when there is a very strong wind. And last, I just want to mention the passing of Kathy Coase. Many of you probably saw the obituary in the Outlook. Was a for several years, and I just want to acknowledge her passing. And with that, we'll move on to public comment on issues not on the agenda. Are there any comments here in attendance? Seeing none, anyone on Zoom who has a comment on not on the agenda? Having seen none, let's move to the consent calendar. We have on the consent calendar the meeting minutes. Any comments from who's on the meeting minutes? Anyone on Zoom has a comment? Minutes, or anyone in the audience? Okay. Second issue is ratifying the June 2024 paid. Again, questions? No? Any members of the audience? Anyone on Zoom? Got a motion to consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Any second? Someone want to?
Second.
Okay. Yeah, well, let's do an all in favor.
You can just ask for all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Absent, not absent, but abstentions. Any abstentions? Not this time. Okay, thank you. The chief had asked excuse from tonight's meeting and that was fine.
I have a few things that he gave me to add to his report, if I
Okay.
could do that.
And I hope everyone has taken a look at his report going forward. So and I should put out in that report that the flock cameras are in place. And one of them, was identified using the flock calendar. Okay, I think we're speaking of the importance of them, so.
He wants to let you and the public that starting effective the middle, we will have as a 20-year background with the Contra Costa Rivera. He'll be coming on duty and working for our district. That will bring us up to one empty position. His recruitment will take place, so hopefully a hiring will happen around January of 20. He wants to remind board members and the public, if you can make it, Coffee with a Cop, July 17th at 299 Arlington, Raxicle. Is that how you say that?
Right.
Coffee shop.
Right on the corner of Arlington and Amherst.
At our meeting, we can expect to have a swearing in our new LT Nath and also of the sergeant I just mentioned. In conjunction with the flock, also there is now GPS monitoring on all the patrol vehicles. Continue to keep that information. And if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them or I'll pass them along to the chief.
Yes, you have a question?
What time is the coffee with a cop?
Oh, that's a good question. July 17th. Thank you.
Anyone else? I would note that property crime from the last 2 months has gone down according to the chief's report, which is good. Anyone in the audience have a comment with regard to the chief's report? Anyone on Zoom? Having seen none? Okay, Chairman Miranda, your monthly report is next.
Yeah, I'd like to add to a few things first. I'd be happy to answer in my report, but a few other things that the board should be aware of. I mentioned the progress we're making on the contract with the city of El Cerrito. They have expressed their appreciation our cooperation and working on that spot there, and glad to have us as a neighbor. County, I am still our financial accounts with them. I received a memo that I can't make heads or tails of. So I've sent it to ID Bailey. It's to me that the bottom check to close it is clear, but it also seems to me that they're trying to mix two funds, our park fund and our general property tax fund, in taking money away and giving us money. So we've got some work to do on that. Full that next week, discussion with Heidi Bailey. We will close out the fiscal year very close to next week or the following week, but prior to the end of July. And then for the August board meeting, you can expect a full from me on how we did department for the fiscal year. And an important note, there will be our annual cleanup September 6th to 20th. And as usual, working with the Christies who are here in the audience. I've already contacted Lynn Dew to make sure we get the proper timing on putting information in there. The Christies have given us from last year, so it'll hope.
Yeah, that,
Ask, do we know yet if it'll be the same level of service in terms of help getting items and hazardous waste and all?
It will be the same level of sort of one item. We're not taking anything away, but there's one request and you want to get up there and the group that request? You need to turn that on.
get. And get.
The
Agreed. Hi, Greg Christie with Beatty Refuge Recycling. We're going to do the exact same thing, and actually we might step it up a little bit. But the only request that we have is we really want to home in on the hazardous waste that we have call and schedule it. Kind of not schedule it, but so we can develop a list. We don't want people just setting stuff out where it's just going to be like at the curb or whatever. And we were able to manage that last year, but we just want to get a little bit better handle on it. We amount, which is fine, from the resource recovery facility for taking the hazardous waste. So we're going to have that helping us again.
Right, thank you. Sylvia?
Am I correct that people don't have to wait until the dispose of hazardous waste, that if they call you during, you can schedule that?
Right. We've kind of rolled out a program. We announced it a little bit in the last newsletter, but on Thursdays, we're trying to take anybody that calls in for hazardous waste. Instead of going to the hazardous waste center, they can call us and we'll pick it up. They can call anytime and schedule it. And just on Thursdays is the best day that we're doing that right now.
Yeah, it'd be great if Lynn Dew reminded people of that too, so that one, it's not one big dump of hazardous waste maybe on the collection time. And also it's a great service. My husband actually just used it this week. Thank you.
Yep. No problem.
Question on hazards. We can also bring El Cerrito,
Right. One of the reasons we have like a permit process when it started years and years ago where we asked people to call us so we could ask them what they had. And if you just go down to the hazardous waste center in El Cerrito, which is fine, but if you take some empty pins or whatever, it costs $100.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and so there's a charge
Really?
to us. It comes to Bayview. It doesn't go to the district. It comes to us. So we
Okay.
pay it out of the garbage service. If we can kind of like get an idea what people have, and empty paint cans can go in the garbage. If they're dry, empty, and they can go in the garbage. Just things like that. Incandescent light bulbs, instead of taking them to the hazardous waste center, those can actually be just disposed of. It's some of the other light bulbs that aren't. So yeah, we try and handle on what it is. So it gets expensive.
So they charge for fluorescent lights being brought down there.
Yeah, fluorescent lights,
Okay.
pesticides, anything. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
Go ahead. Cass?
If you look at our website under Lynette, David Aranda this week, it really needs some updating.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys would want to, the blurbs flyers just be copied right in there because it was really out of date. And you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Okay.
And also, thank you for your report, David. Great job.
Let me also add, you may have seen as you came up the Arlington to the meeting, there's a backhoe down south of the library with water crop. This is starting trenching down there to do their geotech. So you'll notice that over the next few days, as I understand it, David.
Yeah.
Back-
Yeah.
so. Sarah?
Yeah, and just to reassure people, I understand that covered back over once it's done.
Right, and it will be repacked accordingly. Okay. Thank you, David. And the next item is having to do with salaries.
You have director comments, number 9.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we had that at the end. All right. Well, director comments. Anyone have any comment? Go ahead, Kate.
Okay, I wanted to mention to all of you the suggestion that I made to David and Aranda and Mary Morse Mayorga, interim general managers part-time for each of our boards. And I suggested to them that if we are able to achieve reorganization, that it would be so fabulous if each of them would stay on as each of their specialties. Also give us redundancy, which would be safer for us. Who can bridge the gap until we hire another, possibly a full-time person at some point. However, just wanted to then I wanted to go on to quickly mention all of the advantages of reorgan and, otherwise known as consolidate the KPPCSD and the KFPD, so that our public gets this. It's been a long, we had a discussion. This will take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Stop shaking your head.
Well, I'm not sure it's permissible. This is not on the agenda, and it's an item that will come before the board as a policy matter, so I don't think it's appropriate.
I just think it's important to remind our public to go into great detail of the reasons why we're doing an important action for the. No one else objects. I'm just going to plow right through this, okay?
Well,
The danger that is that you're expressing thoughts that should be an agenda item. Director comments are really meant to be brief items. And what you're doing is you're addressing something that could be even considered to be controversial on this. And it skews the whole purpose of from the Brown Act standpoint, purpose of people could view it as skirting the is what I'm trying to say.
Agendize this so that we can.
I'm
Keep
happy
our-
to put it on the agenda next.
I just feel that it's
Sure.
been, a year and a half.
Going to be a discount
You know,
anyway.
Between
We're hoping to have the 10-year financial analysis that lends itself toward the of consolidation or reorganization. If you want to incorporate that agenda, I think that makes it more appropriate than trying to instill your on reorganization as a director.
Well, I just think it is really kind of inappropriate that this board has not mentioned any reorganization when there are many, many benefits which are not financial.
well,
So let's that
Okay,
so we can go over
okay.
really important, for many people who, this could be one of the biggest topics of discussion already, and yet we haven't mentioned it in a meeting in a year and a half.
Okay.
And wonderful things will happen if we consolidate. That's what I want.
okay, let's,
Okay,
let me just.
I will wrap up my comments with that. Thank you so much.
On a particular issue, let me remind everyone that that is one of the items in the priorities that we discussed earlier. That discussion will be held in full at the time in which both boards consider consolidation. So
I know, but that could be a long way away and people have not been, privy to the
My letter to
backstory.
the editor.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else have any comments on the board? All right, David, now we're talking about salary.
Yeah, on agenda item number 10, every year, it's very important that the board approve the salary schedule. As noted in the report, miscellaneous employees, we do not have a contract for CalPERS miscellaneous employees, but it was the recommendation attorney that specializes in CalPERS that be included so that CalPERS can see the comparison of all the salaries. So I'm asking the board to approve the CalPERS salary.
Any comments, board members? Any, Sylvia?
Just for clarity, when you say quote unquote miscellaneous, you mean things like the janitor or the
It's easier one, but the police.
yeah, thank you. Okay.
In other words, all personnel.
Yeah, David, thank you for clarifying and highlighting that point, because I think that's something that the has been confused about a little bit. Who exactly receives those CalPERS benefits? And it's just the sworn police officers, right? Not even, we have non-sworn police type staff, but they don't receive.
Again, by our attorney that specializes in CalPERS, Isabel, that there is nothing that requires a agency where you have a public that you would to a miscellaneous contract. They're two definitively separate. CalPERS will not force you to do one with the other.
Right clear in the code that these are two contractual. Any comments within the audience? Anyone on Zoom have a comment on the salary scale? All right, having seen, I have a roll call to approve the. I'm sorry. Being ahead of myself. I have a motion to approve the pay scale.
Okay. I move that we approve the CalPERS pay scale.
Second,
Second,
all right, please.
Okay, so Vice President Aquino,
yes.
Director Duggan,
Yes.
Goff,
Yes.
and President Spath.
Yes. All right, now let's take the item which has to do with the $75,000 1383 local assistant grant.
Yeah.
And
So,
David,
let me, Christie's again, Kim and Greg from Bayview, and then on the Zoom is, Alex and Kate from R3. I will tell you that I've had a few questions from some of the directors. So I don't know, let me get to the report, staff. Maybe we can break it down that way. So the $75,000 in the bank account. Okay, we've received it. It's very specific. You want that detail specifics, probably Alex is the one from R3 that can give you more information on how that money can be used. The $30,000 for all R3 consulting is, I want to emphasize, it is a significant amount of the 75,000, but I will tell you that without R3, not have been able to obtain the grant money. And I say that for two reasons. One is I just didn't have the time to do it. Second is there are technical aspects of making sure that the state finds us in compliance with what the requirements are to just obtain the money, let alone I welcome the fact that Alex on R3 will be in that some. Then I've outlined that 7,000 would be, and it's rough number because I do need to keep track of time on this, but there's the ability to the grant money and place it in the general fund for my time on that. The items of 5,000 each in education, 15,000 for collection of bins, and then 18,000 for the dehydration units. I know a number of you have some all items, and so my recommendation would be to take them one at a time and try. The breakdown of these dollars was between the Christies, three, and myself. None of us are necessarily encased in having to do it, but any we make have to go back to the grant administrator with the state in regard to approval of changes that we make. And that's, I'm not saying there's a problem with that. I'm just saying it's an administrative process that takes place. So with that, I'm going to start with 1,000 for outreach, education, questions, comments about that.
I guess I'm okay with the 5,000 for education and outreach if it is specific to Kensington and our area and taps into zero waste resources in the area. Just something a bit more additive than general education around composting and recycling. Although I do think people need clarification because I feel like it's changing, film is a yes or no, or, so that's, but for $5,000, I'd like to see a little more value, conversation around waste and the local resources that support that. Like there are places on Solana Avenue and for refillable things, just something a little more meaty for that price. Is that possible?
When you talk about zero waste, would you clarify what you mean?
Sort of a whole lifestyle that embraces, really true use, recycle and rot and basically very little to no waste in the home. And so it just takes every decision that you make in terms of your consumption and use just to a different level. And it's just a whole movement around it. There's a lot, for example, and it's just a worldwide, there's a lot of interest in learning ways to do that. So you could go to a shop in Berkeley and refill your container of soap instead of buying, and that's not recycling and that's not compost. And it's just a really interesting, in some capacity, it's, you have to learn how to do it. Obviously, there's a learning curve for everyone, and that can be as meaningful. So is that something within the purview of the grant?
You want me to start with any comments?
Yeah.
Alex? Thoughts?
Thank you, David. And so I think the initial feedback on that is basically that the outreach or that the whole grant is basically focused on organics specifically. And so we do see limitations with already even some of the things as far as container purchases, you can't add in any. So but the recycling, for example, you can only be doing work for recycling if it's inclusive of cardboard recycling, because cardboard and paper are the organic parts of the waste stream. So I just wanted to say that as far as like, that's the level of caveats at the state level. So I think that we can do a bigger outreach piece, but just any outreach piece that is developed as part of the grant will have to go back to the grant manager for approval before production. So I think it's something that we can try to work in, but we can try to be adaptive with our approach to it. So.
Sylvia?
I would just make a suggestion that the less we have to go back, the better. And if we can be adaptive, perhaps we invite a vendor like the shop on Solano Avenue to join whatever festival, because they are sort of a joint, they are adjoining in the mission, but the bulk that stays focused on recycling and organics is best, because the more we have to go back. a guarantee that they'll approve it anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't come into progress, so if it becomes complicated or consuming, but just would like to have, not a have to have, in my opinion.
Thank you, understood.
I mean, it seems reasonable that we could ask someone to come and do a presentation on zero waste and be paid for by the grant or something.
Well, I wouldn't suggest we need to pay for someone to do that. They may be quite interested if we put on some type of an event on recycling and broaden it to zero waste. I think they'd probably be more than happy to come and make a presentation. So maybe that would be a better way to try to do it.
David gave me a microphone, so.
People can't see you though. People can't see you. Come on.
And the podium.
All right, and the idea behind the 5,000 was kind of supplement already doing. I mean, we're already putting out newsletters and stuff, and maybe we don't have a broader focus. We can expand on what we do and get different things. But I think couldn't hear everything Alex was saying, but as long as we stay within paper and stuff like that, we can there's certain amounts of recycling and organics, we can include that in the public outreach. So I think we just build on that. So yes, and suggestion is maybe checking with somebody with the county. They have Contra Costa County. They have zero waste experts. I mean, we quite regularly, so they might have somebody that could come out and talk.
Okay. All right, going on to the next item, the 15,000 for collection bins. Well, okay. Sylvia, you can start.
I guess my only question is do we know what that will buy us? Because when we purchased all of this stuff, I mean, it was pretty expensive and I'm curious as to what this means. Is this adding more receptacles in new places or?
I guess I can answer that. That was my area of research. You have these out here that are in the public areas all these public cans are expensive. I know, I can't believe it, but I'm more focused on like in the Calusa Circle in Arlington, and then a couple of bus stops in front of Mechanics Banks. There's an existing can there. There is a can, the drugstore, the recycling bin and a garbage bin there that are match set. There's nowhere else do we have a recycling bin or bin together. So if we just add to the existing cans a recycling bin, which would be covered under the grant, then we money instead of buying two for $1. So that was kind of the idea behind that. And there were some pictures in there that just showed them. And then the thought process was up on Grizzly Hill, there's just stuff, and we could just add a garbage and a recycling one there. The garbage one might not be covered under the grant, but I mean, I think add two of that ourselves, and then at least we have some of it covered.
That's where they put all the dog poop, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Sure.
So for this item, would it, for example, some of those places it's quite tight. I'm thinking specifically near Nielsen Park, they have the one trash can. To put there, I think it would be quite crowded. What about something like Berkeley has with the trash can and then the recycling component on top? So it's one unit.
If we get it, if we can, that's doable. They might have one within that same style that has a built on top. They do make like a double unit that's smaller, less capacity on each side, but almost, maybe instead of being 30 gallons, it might be 45 gallons. And so you would 60 with the two. But yeah, there's options and we can look at that.
I think being cognizant of the space and not overcrowding sidewalks with multiple bins and also the park with drainage bins. So that was actually one of my other comments about the large bins for green waste in the park. Anyway, that instead, the park is this, natural green space. And already I feel like we've got a lot of signage and stuff going on that we have to, but the question is, where would they go and not be unsightly? And then they'll fill up and then can we put that money just having Fernando's team or who or your team common waste or repurpose it there right on site to then use for our mulching purposes? Because all of the down limbs also sort of fuel reductions work. So it's kind of commingling, I get that, but then having a fixed bin, just pay for the labor, could the grant go towards the labor to just deal with it and redistribute it throughout the park?
I think we talked about this when we were doing the process that first, you know, the somewhere to put the material. It doesn't cover the labor to like do a cleanup or something like that. And we might have to get a little bit more clarification from Alex on that, but I think the idea on what you're talking about the park up above here. Yeah, I think there was an idea that there was a place for a larger bin stuck out of the way and that the gardener could throw all the stuff in there. And then traditionally, if it's being, and then Kensington could get the credit for that recycling or for the a way that, you know, you never see options on what we could do there. Yeah.
So there has to be some kind of receptacle in the park. It's not just, you couldn't just put the money towards the labor and immediate remove.
Don't believe so. If Alex can maybe, if we can hear him, Alex, and he can
Yeah,
answer.
I don't believe that would be an allowable expense at this time.
Okay, so, David, when we spoke earlier about, I think it was our understanding that the waste, that green waste would be removed every week. Would that be? That is not the case, though. The money wouldn't go to, or would it?
The cost to remove the green bee was something we would just do. It could be more than once a week, you know, yeah.
An added cost to ratepayer or?
No.
No. No?
No.
Okay. Oh, wow.
No.
Then, and yeah, where, because the only option we talked about that might have worked and been out of the way might have been near the fire road right there, but obviously there can be obstructed. That would be a critical piece. Putting it out of sight and also not in the way of, yeah.
All right, we'll make sure we look at the areas and see which is the best spot to put it. I can do my best on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question would be, what is Fernando and his team currently doing with the green waste that they collect? You know,
They're hauling it.
they're hauling it away and dumping it where?
Greg, maybe you need to explain to everyone better the benefits of, I mean, it's something that I can approach Fernando on his cost because that's lessening his cost. But the credit you're talking about, maybe you need to explain that better.
When we start and stuff, everybody's going like, well, my gardener takes it away. And I'm like, so if you just tell your gardener it's green bin, you know, or put it out, you know, in the unlimited fashion like we did for years. So that's one benefit. The other benefit is that we get the numbers. So if that goes away to your gardener, then he might be dumping it at the land and at the organics facility and just saying it's coming from Berkeley, for example. And Kensington wouldn't get the credit, you know. So when we take it to load, you get the total credit for everything that's real and in Kensington, and then the numbers are reported through a whole process to the state. So that's an important factor that we actually get the credit.
And what is the credit? I'm sorry.
Credit to get to zero waste.
Okay.
Yeah, so the more you and the less your landfill goes down, and you can get to that magic number, whatever zero waste. Won't ultimately be zero waste, but it'll be close.
So we're essentially cheating ourselves by private contractors take the green waste instead of Bayview.
Say we're zero, we don't get like an award.
We can
Money.
put a big sign out there and says, we compost.
Well, again, there are certain state requirements that we have to meet. That's the bottom line. So we don't want to cheat ourselves in not being able to meet our obligations. Yes.
Another quick question and a different idea. So the bins have to be near a road so the garbage truck can get near them, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We have to get out to wheel them to the truck. Yes, that's correct.
So have they been thinking about exactly where they should go or?
You're talking about the larger bin for the green waste?
Larger bin
I think,
Look
yeah.
at.
Windsor or something? I don't know.
Well, when we let
All right.
the experts
Okay, so new idea. I often work in businesses. As a side note, I'm a fanatical recycler, have been since youth. I lived in Germany. In Europe, it's at a whole different level. Everything is recycled really well. And so I get frustrated when I see all these businesses who do particularly paper. And I'm wondering if we could somehow give out free green waste bins that they could use at small businesses in Kensington. Maybe that could be part of the second one.
That's a possibility because we left a little bit of wiggle room in the bin area, so we could do that. I mean, we can even do that as cycling. We can do that too. And part of SB 1383 is we're gonna have to go to the businesses. There's like so much into SB, can't get into it in a conversation, but we need to go out and see some of the businesses and what they're doing.
Yeah, so that I think they get likely to, you know, sort their garbage, give out free, you know, the blue bin that can go in or whatever, something like that.
Well, we try to, wherever there's a garbage in this, they should have a bin for recycling.
We're talking about
But inside their
inside.
business is the challenge, because everybody wants something different, but we have different options to provide.
Yeah, well, I would love as this grant to hand out free small bins that you can have in your home, something before you take it out to the recycling bin.
One standard, more bang for our buck that way.
Yeah, like just something, you know, where they can
Yep.
store all their stuff in the house, you know, you give wonders that as well as this mill thing, I guess, next topic.
Okay.
Audience have a comment on this? Zoom on the bins?
Don't see any.
None? Okay. The third item is this meal product. Oh, someone else to chime in?
I did have the quick of, I see that they cost like $6.49. Are we subsidizing down to 100 or 200 because different things contradicted each other in the paperwork?
For retail in talking to Mill, they gave us a multi-purchase discount. And then the discussion goes with the flavor that the Christies and Alex and Kate and we thought that just giving them away is just gonna cause a lot of people to come tramp, maybe never use them. So that's why we came up and solid dollar amount, if that's the way we establish the program. I do believe that going along said that the first contacts for these units should be straight biosolids.
Yeah, I had a couple issues with this. And 31st person comes in, and we're telling them, no, they can't have. I think that works very well. I noticed that R3 has a different approach. Residents to volunteer in a volunteer program. And seeing how successful that might be going forward. Possibly with a mill and see if they would give it.
I'm not following how we would spend the money.
Well, as I saw your proposal here, the proposal that R3 has in their discussion, they talk about same type of purchasing these devices, but asking residents if they would volunteer to use them to see how they work. In other words, finding 30 residents who might be willing to take them, see how they, opposed to saying first come first, and leaving people who might be interested in having them out in the cold because they weren't one of the first 30 people. My thought is that looking at the R3 approach, seeking out 30 households to participate in a program to see how these devices would work. That makes it at least people who want to volunteer. Then if 30 people want to volunteer, then that's fine. If the 31st comes later, well, that's unfortunate. But at least you got people volunteering as opposed to giving them these devices and then eliminating it from the opportunity. And then subsequent to the article, if Mill would be interested, if these devices look like they might work based on this exercise, that maybe they would be willing to give a reduced race for purchase.
Kate and Alex, I'm not sure if that's R3's approach, Mill's approach in the pricing. But do either one of you have some comments on what Board President Spath had to say? Kate, it's the K. Schultz. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what I can first say is that certainly, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. How the participants are recruited, I would say that there's plenty of space to figure that out. Most of the time, the programs are considered a pilot, in part because it's the small size. And I think when you're doing this in a community, part of the point is to study the participation and gather that data. I know Mill provided reduced pricing as part of this pilot. Certainly they engage with communities and pricing becomes part of that discussion. But I think the number of households involved, how those households are selected, there's still plenty of room and space to decide how that works out. And kind of nothing needs to happen between, us and CalRecycle in terms of that level of detail.
You were breaking up, that's why some of shaking our heads and being frustrated are.
That's comforting that it's that and not what I said.
So
I mean, I heard flexibility in how all this is determined. That's the bottom line. I heard.
right. It's just, I think we can suggest options as I just did, and then leave it to the general manager in R3 and Bayview to come up with a if we're pleased about putting the money into these Sarah.
Yeah, I guess that's my question. Did you guys do any kind of survey or market research in the community to understand sort of Kensington residents' interest in a product like this? Because it seems like this sort of thing is more geared towards communities that don't have recycling offered as a composting offered as a service. It just,
All jurisdictions have to collect food waste.
compost, so places outside of California, then I don't know, it seems the value is more you would make fewer trips to your compost bed. I see something like this and the last thing I want is another big device in my home, small kitchen. I don't have any interest. That's just me as a resident. I don't know what other people think. I just in all of this, if we of the uptake and
Well, a couple things. Required to create a organic waste reduction program, and that means been doing. And at least from my perspective, these devices are intended to make it easier for homeowners collect the waste and store more of it, but it's easier to use because it dries and before you have to then put it out into. So I think it's maybe worthwhile, maybe not, maybe no, but yeah, then to repurpose that money otherwise if it doesn't work. Go ahead, well, why don't
You speak.
onto that, if you don't mind.
I'm not from the mill and they did approach us at one time and and I think they've approached many jurisdictions. And the idea behind it is that it takes away the ick factor. There's some people just don't want to compost, and this was a way to it's a kind of a neat thing. It's pretty cool how it works. It's some work used here at the processes was maybe some of the nursery schools, churches that have some food service, because you just put the stuff in there and you don't have to mess with it. It cycles all its own on its own, and then when it's done and it bin and dump it out, it's all on an automatic process. You can get on your phone. So I think it's pretty good. End up try else purpose of funds.
I think I want to get one of these myself. I've got a small kitchen, but I get this nasty drippy compost and it's smelly. I'm a fanatic. I put my leftover cat's food in there. My cat won't eat all his food. Smelling. I actually think one of these would be great.
You'd enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd enjoy it. I
No,
think we ought.
it's at the district office.
We've
I've
got one.
observed it now for a couple months, and it's
Okay. Okay, they gave you a
especially
free one.
especially for people. If you are a green person that wants to take your messy, smelly banana peels and everything and do something, then you throw all that stuff in it, and when it cycles, you open it up and it's basically disintegrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let
I
me,
think we ought to give them to try to some specific, community service kind of ways of distributing, maybe for free to certain organizations.
If the board's okay with allowing the general concept of what we're presenting, some good information that I think the team here can, and who wants it.
yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, I think that might be useful. I think it'd be useful to see if people use them and then make it to everybody else. So we'll leave it to you to carry on this. Leave it to the and the respective.
Hey, I appreciate the two on Zoom and the Christie's being here, because now 5 of us have heard your thoughts, and I think we can work
Right.
at trying to.
Delk would like to say something. Delk, I'm gonna have you on in a minute.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. I tried to put my hand up for number 2, but having trouble with the audio, and I didn't hear you say that. But anyway, let me just go back to item number 2 on this about the large bins that are proposed to be purchased to be put in the park. So, quote, so that landscaping items would be placed in the bin instead of being hauled off to the dump. Greg Christie, I think answered that question, but it was pretty broken up. It sounds like right now. for
Well,
now-
you're breaking up. Delk, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sending me an email of your thoughts. And I just, to be quite honest with you, I don't know about everyone else, but what you're trying to say, and I apologize.
I will do that. I will send it to you and I will send it to each of the board members. Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, appreciate that. I'm sorry for the continuing audio problem. The agenda is the solid waste, including both the franchise fee revenue and the cost of service, so waste.
Yeah, so we've had this discussion. If the board recalls, a number of months ago, I brought before you a proposal and we kind of, for two reasons, we didn't think the proposal was complete. And the second reason is we kind of thought, we can save a lot of money if we're going to of study that includes a cost study in addition to termination of the franchise fees. All I'm asking for the board to do is confirm that they're okay with me going forward with an RFP. Only two are out there that do this kind of work, from talking to an attorney that specializes in solid waste. But getting an RFP out, say something, and I hope no one this the wrong way, but I've been here a year and a half. She's have been a really good partner with us community. And in fairness to them, it would be advantageous once we've done our due diligence to enter into a long-term agreement with them so that they know that they have the security of all the investment. They've invested a lot, especially in the recycling and green waste. And they don't have that security right now with the contract. I made an error. The contract is up 6, not 25. But still, that's a short period of time. And I'd like to, obviously, if there's a glitch in something that comes upon the study, we'll have to have a discussion. But forward with getting.
Yeah. Good, Sylvia. We can,
Well, no, I'm waiting for comments before I do anything else first.
any comments? Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to make a motion. Do you want to check with the residents, participants before I make a motion, if there's any comment?
Oh, okay. Anyone in the audience, board here, apparently, anyone online? No. I
Okay.
went home, even Delk went home, and that's surprising.
Yeah, this is her big, I'd like to make, propose that the general manager to go forward with developing an RFP for a solid waste study that would include for the franchise revenue and the for solid waste.
Seconded.
No more comments, roll call?
Yes.
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 Yes. 5 in favor, approved. With that, we have completed the agenda. So thank you all for coming, and we will see you in August.